Hello, this is Gamer Vince, and welcome to part 2 of my Wizards tutorial. And before I move on to Metamagic and races and, feats and that kind of thing, I just wanted to finish up by going over 4th and 5th level spells. And the reason for that is I feel like in your average D&D game, you might get up to levels 10, 11, maybe 12, but I feel like 4th level spells and 5th level spells are something that you might encounter in your average game. I feel like most games that I've played in don't go really beyond 12th level. That's about the highest game that I usually play with. And if you play Pathfinder Society, I think that's about where it caps out as well. In Pathfinder Society, you're not going to get higher than that. And the reason for that is I feel like it sort of makes sense. One, for new players, it's quite intimidating. When you start, in order to play a 13th or 15th level character, something that high up, you have to level it up through all of the steps 1 through 15. So you have to, essentially make a level 1 character and then level it up a bunch of times. And if you're starting the campaign at that level, that means character creation is a long time, and there's a lot that you're going to need to understand before playing the game. So I feel like character creation wise, it's just a little bit painful starting at a really high level. And if you're not starting at a really high level, it's unlikely that you'll get there just because it takes so long to level up. And if you are playing a game up to that level, I feel like by the time you get to that level, you're going to be good to go and you're going to have your own play style. The higher level spells, the further we go into higher level wizard spells, it's going to depend on what you already have and what you've been specializing your caster as. So 6th level spells is going to depend very, very much on what other spells you have, what are you using, what are you facing. They start becoming more niche and start depending far more on what you already have. So I'm going to skip 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells. I'm just going to skip those. Suffice it to say they're very powerful, and once you get to that level, I feel like you can identify spells yourself. And I don't want to take forever going through them, so I'll skip those for now. But I am going to go over 4th and 5th level spells because I think this is something that you might encounter and you might want some help with. It's not unheard of to start, an 8th level game, and it's like, well, I've got a very select few number of 4th level spells. What should I pick? Well, let's go over what you should pick. Because in 4th level, there are actually a couple of pretty good ones. I've already mentioned Black Tentacles. Just being able to grapple a bunch of your opponents is pretty dang good. Grapple is a horrible condition, especially for casters. If they have like a group of casters or even just one caster, cast Black Tentacles on them, it'll likely disable them for the rest of the fight. And the rest of your party can just kind of come up to them and begin coup de grace. Actually, I'm not sure if they're probably not considered helpless. Well, they could get pinned. And once they're pinned, they're helpless. So yeah, the Black Tentacles can help the rest of your party coup de grace their casters. So watch out for that one. Black Tentacles is really good. Dimension Door is also a really good spell. It allows you to teleport you a short distance. It is fantastic when you yourself are grappled. Dimension Door out of there. It only has a verbal component, so because it has no somatic component, that means it's good to cast in a grapple. You don't need to move. So it's the instantaneous escape from grapple spell. It is fantastic. It'll help you out a whole lot. So, yeah. That's one that's definitely worth getting. Dimension Door. Good utility spell. And I noticed that both of these are under Conjuration. Conjuration is just a really good school of magic. Like I said, my favorite one. It's pretty good. 4th level also opens up things like scrying, where you can spy on a subject from a distance, which, is sort of like, scrying to me is like the divination spell. It's the one that allows you to reach across vast distances and secretly look at what the bad guy is doing, kind of thing. Roleplay wise, it has a million uses. Though the DM is I know that for me personally, as a DM, scrying is one of those spells that I hate from a DM's perspective because I like intrigue and mystery, and I usually come up with reasons to shut scrying down. But I let my players know that sort of ahead of time. So if they're spending, if they're like, wow, I want to cast scrying really early and I'm going to spend all my money to get like a couple of scrolls of scrying or something like that, I'll dissuade them from that because it's not going to be very useful in my game. And if you have a DM like that, scrying may not be very useful, but it can be. And of course, there's the tech scrying, which bad guys in my world totally use scrying, even if you can't use scrying on them. So that's something to keep in mind on it. In 4th level, you're also going to get occasionally spells like Charm Monster. So you had Charm Person earlier, which only works on humanoids. It does not work on things like tieflings, because they're not humanoid, despite having, a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs, and looking humanoid. They're not humanoids. They're monsters. They're outsiders. So Charm Monster is going to help you bridge that gap and just hit almost anything. And I'm assuming Hold Monster is somewhere around here as well. Same thing, Hold Person only works on humanoids, Hold Monster will work on everything. In general, not that impressive for a 4th level spell. Charm Person is nice in utility, but Charm Monster, just being able to use Charm Person is part of the reason why it's good is because it's a low level spell. So Charm Monster being a high level spell, not really that worth it, but it is there. Gias is an interesting one because you basically command somebody to fulfill a quest. You sort of become a quest giver by casting the spell on them, and bad things happen to them if they don't complete the quest. Gias is one worth checking out. Again, it's more for a role play kind of thing, and this one might be good for an NPC to use on the players to sort of get them to do something, though you might want to use a higher version. Higher Gias, but Gias is sort of the quest spell, and it can be used in very creative ways. I quite like spells that can be used in creative ways, so Gias is one of them. But moving right along, in Evocation there is not a whole lot of good at level 4. Yeah, the most of these are going to be sort of inferior. They're going to be inferior to your Fireball and Lightning if you have it. It's going to be just inferior to that spell. It's just not going to do the damage you're looking for, or it's not going to do it to enough creatures, or the surrounding things aren't good enough. There is Flaming Sphere Greater, which is kind of good. If you like Flaming Sphere, here's the greater version. But if you don't use it, you're not going to use it at this level. It didn't really get much better. It's going to deal a little bit of extra damage, 66, but it's not really any different. So, not really that great. And here's Phantasmal Killer. So, there's a whole group of spells called Save or Die. That's what players know them as. Save or Die, and Phantasmal Killer is the first one in this set. It basically is a spell that you can cast on an opponent, and if they make their save, they're fine, but if they don't make it, they die. There's also a couple of spells that kind of fall into that group called Save or Suck, where basically if they make their save, they're fine, but if they don't make it, they're going to suck so much that they might as well be dead for the purposes of combat. And I have sort of an ambivalent relationship towards Save or Die spells. Having read several guides on it myself, it seems that the consensus is that Save or Die spells are not as great as you would originally think, simply because a lot of the things that you want to die instantly have very high saves, and they have things like spell resistance, so your Save or Die spell is just really unlikely to work, and they don't do anything if they fail. Take Fireball, for instance. A Fireball, not being a Save or Die spell, even if they make the save, they take half damage, which is not great, but it's better than nothing. While a Save or Die spell usually does nothing. Phantasmal Killer is the first that you're going to encounter of these supposedly powerful Save or Die spells, but Phantasmal Killer is even worse than your average Save or Die spell because your opponent gets 2 save. they get a will save, first of all, to just disbelieve the illusion, and if they don't disbelieve the illusion, they get a fortitude save to prevent themselves from dying. So they get 2 saves, and 2 really different saves, will and fortitude. The odds are that a monster or a bad guy you're facing is going to have at least a high will save or a high fortitude save, if not both. So the odds of the Phantasmal Killer killing anything is really, really unlikely. So keep that in mind. If you do want to have it in your back pocket, just to be able to say, like, I made the big bad guy have a heart attack and die, because that's what the spell does. It literally scares them to death. Then, go for it. It's not actually, and if they fail the first save, they at least take 3d6 of damage, which again is not great, but at least it's not nothing. So, Phantasmal Killer. So that's one that you're likely to encounter. I don't think it's that great, but hey, there it is. If you like save or die spells, this is the first chance you're going to get to pick one up. All right, other spells that are worth noting: Greater Invisibility. So invisibility has the drawback of that if you attack or do like an offensive spell or something like that, you pop out of invisibility. Greater Invisibility doesn't have that drawback. Now, Greater Invisibility, I believe, lasts only rounds per level, not as opposed to minutes. Oh, it does last minutes per level. It lasts minutes per level. Yeah, it's a pretty dang good spell. Oh wait, no, that's Invisibility. Where's Greater? Greater Invisibility. Yeah, okay. I was right. It is a round per level. I was about to say, like, minute per level. Invisibility Greater is fantastic. No, Greater Invisibility only lasts round per level, so it lasts significantly less, which makes it very difficult to cast before combat begins. Because if you cast it before combat begins, and then it takes like 30 seconds for combat to actually start, well, guess what? The spell is pretty much worn off at that point. A round being 6 seconds long. So if you're a level 10 wizard casting this, it'll last 1 minute. You've got a minute. 10 rounds. So that's a big drawback, but it doesn't end if the subject attacks. So if you want to put it on the rogue so that they can sort of sneak attack with impunity, it's good use for that. But that said, one of the best things about Invisibility is that it's a utility spell, and Invisibility Greater doesn't give you the same utility. In fact, it gives you less because it lasts a shorter duration. So Invisibility Greater can be really good, or you can, of course, make yourself invisible and start casting fireballs. If you're a blaster caster, Invisibility Greater can really help you out. Cast it first thing in combat, and then if they're reliant on sight, there's very little they can do to you. So Invisibility Greater, worth pointing out. I don't think it's as good actually as Invisibility, because Invisibility being a lower level spell and lasting longer has more utility to it, but Invisibility Greater does have some benefits to it. Of course, here's where Animate Dead, not Lesser Dead, but Animate Dead gets unlocked, so that's not bad for the Necromancy school. So if you are going for the zombie and skeleton horde route, here's where it starts getting good, where instead of lesser undead, you can actually make some decent undead. But again, clerics are better at it, so wouldn't bother. And here's Enervation. Here's one of the few necromancy spells that's actually very good. It gives your target negative levels, which can be absolutely debilitating. Negative levels drain all kinds of things. So it's a boss killer. Enervation is a boss killer. It'll give it negative levels and just make them suck. So that's not a bad one. Wait, I feel like I skipped something, because where's Confusion? Ah, okay, yeah, see, I thought it was under Enchantment. Confusion! Confusion is actually a very, very good spell. So 4th level is one where things get turned on their head a little bit. I mean, Conjuration is always good. Doesn't matter, Conjuration is fantastic. But in 4th level, you get a couple of good Enchantment, Necromancy, and Necromancy spell. Evocation's kind of sucking, but yeah, Confusion. It says subjects behave oddly for a round per level. What does that mean? Like, if you were going over this list, you'd look at Confusion and be like, well, that's not worth anything. No. Look at it again. Yeah, there's a chance that they'll act normally. They could do nothing, or they're going to start fighting each other. Attack nearest creature. And a confused character, and keep reading, keep reading. Uh, any confused character who's attacked automatically attacks its attacker on its next turn, as long as it is still confused when its turn comes. That is a crucial sentence. Combine that once one of these bad guys, so you cast confusion on a whole room full of enemies, and then make yourself invisible or something like that. Just get out of the way. As soon as one of them attacks the other one, they're all going to be fighting each other. It's only a matter of time because they're all fighting each other. So confusion can have a huge, devastating effect on a crowd of enemies because they'll start fighting each other, especially melee opponents that are all kind of grouped together. Your DM thought it was a great idea to have a phalanx of soldiers. Yeah, well, guess again. A confused phalanx will just kill itself. So confusion is actually a really good spell. So yeah, watch out for that one. So yeah, enchantment actually has a couple of decent ones at 4th level. All right, moving on. Enervation is really the only good necromancy spell in here. Most of these other ones aren't that great. I mean, you're gonna get some that are decent. Don't let me dissuade you from taking some spells that look decent. It's just going to be spells. There probably might be a couple of better options. Beast Shape 2 becomes available here, which makes it a little bit better turning into a large animal. One thing that I should mention is that when you Beast Shape, you can't cast spells. So watch out for that. You can get pretty powerful turning into Beast Shape, and there's a lot of good utility options for it, but watch out about your spell casting. If you're a druid, you can get a feat. Since you're beast shaping a lot more, you can get a feat to cast while animal. Actually, I'm not sure if that feat is available to wizards. It might actually be. But yeah, beast shape and elemental body do the kind of thing. Same thing. As far as transmutation schools go, yeah, there's a decent number of them, but none of them are really that good. Monstrous physique is so being able to turn yourself into different things has the utility aspect to it. And I feel like with monstrous physique, yeah, you can still cast spells. So you can buff yourself up a little bit. It is only you though. And if you're a wizard, you don't really want to be on the front lines anyway. So yeah, sure, you can turn into a large monstrous humanoid, gaining a bunch of strength and natural armor, but why you shouldn't really need it. If you're a wizard, you have a lot of spells to avoid getting hit, everything from invisibility to mirror image and blur, and different kinds of ways to just avoid taking damage. You shouldn't need monstrous physique. And the bonus to strength, you're not really going to need. So I watch out for those. There is Mnemonic Enhancer, which is going to give you it allows you to prepare extra spells, which is interesting. It's not that bad. And aside from that, yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it for 4th level spells. They stop getting that much better. 3rd level spells are the hallmark of a wizard. That is when a wizard becomes really powerful. That is when they're going to start just overshadowing their fighter and martial counterparts. So 4th level spells, there are some decent ones, but not as many as 3rd level. 5th level spells, you're going to have a little bit of trouble again. Let's see, Abjuration, I don't think there's anything really that great. Nope, most of these I don't usually use. Under Conjuration, of course, you're going to find good spells, because you always find good spells under Conjuration. There's things like Cloud Kill, which, if you're facing a lot of little guys, it's just going to kill them. Anything under 6 hit dice has a chance of dying, and if it literally has 3 or less hit dice, it just dies. You cast this on a level 3 goblin, or like a horde of level 3 goblins, they'll all just die. No save even, they just die. So against little guys, it's just absolutely devastating. Of course, being a high level spell, being a 5th level spell, the vast majority of things you're going to be fighting aren't a bunch of little bad guys. They're going to be higher level dudes. They're going to have 6 hit dice or more. and they're going to take some con damage. However, a living creature with 6 or more hit dice takes con damage. Successful warrior save halves this damage. See, this is an important bit. It only halves the damage if they get a successful fortitude save, and con damage kind of sucks. So that's it. It reminds me a lot of Stinking Cloud, and I think that it's still a cloud, so it's pretty good. I know I like it. I like casting it on things. And it's a good area control spell. And Teleport is under Conjuration as well, because, Conjuration needed to be more awesome. Being able to teleport, 100 miles per level. This is the spell where the king says, I need you to travel to the far distant lands and get my... Oh, you're already back. Teleport can really cuts travel down. So... yeah, again, it's more of a role-play kind of thing, but, travel is a big part of D&D. It's a medieval setting. You're traveling by horse. You're traveling on foot. Teleport gets rid of that. So teleport is actually a very, very good... It's actually a very good spell. It's got a lot of utility to it as well. Just being able to teleport all over the place. Dimension Door is usually a little bit more useful in close quarters. If you just want to teleport, say, across a gap away from an enemy, that kind of thing. But teleport, when Dimension Door can't reach, teleport's the way to go. Notice that divination spells are getting less and less. I feel like we've gotten the best divination spells. You're not going to get, that many more good divination spells. Enchantment for 5th level, there is the powerful Dominate Person. It allows you to basically just control a humanoid. Now, not everything you're going to be fighting is a humanoid. As I sort of mentioned, tieflings and Aasimar, which you'd expect would be humanoids, aren't. And of course, oozes and undead, and there's all kinds of things that this spell isn't going to work on. But when it does work, it can be pretty devastating. So Dominate Person, yeah, it literally allows you to control a person. And if your DM is cool with it and the rest of the party's cool with it, it can be used for hilarious hijinks amongst the party. Because they're going to be humanoids, most likely. So, Dominate Person your friends. It'll be funny. Evocation. The only one that could be pretty good here is Wall of Force. Most of these others aren't that great, because they're just not as good as compared to, like, Fireball. Some of these are, wait, what's Lightning Arc? It says targets in the line contain 1d6 electric damage per. That's literally like lightning. So yeah, I guess it allows you to be a little bit different. 2 creature object list. It allows you to set it up differently, and it's got a higher maximum. So, that's a thing. But to be perfectly honest, Fireball is still your go-to spell. If you encounter something that's fire resistant, then lightning. And if you encounter something that's resistant to both, then you're going to need to start, getting a little bit more creative. But stuff like Lightning Arc isn't really going to help you there, or Fire Snake. It's not that great. Wall of Force. So there's several wall spells. They create a wall, and those walls do various things. Some of them deal damage if they're passed through. Some of them are made of stone. Wall of Force is good for the sole reason that it is immune to damage. Most other wall spells, like take Wall of Stone, an enemy can actually get through it. They can start damaging it, and it can happen. The wall's actually not that tough. And other wall spells, while are a deterrent to go through, it's not a 100% deterrent. While Wall of Force, it's immune to damage. You can divide a battlefield up. It only lasts a round per level, but you can divide a battlefield up, so it has good utility in separating out a crowd. And of course, spells like Dimension Door and Teleport are still going to have you, bypass the wall. So it's not going to actually be that big of a limit to you. You'll just Dimension Door right through it. So Wall of Force can be a decent one. Illusion. Oh, I felt like there was something good in Illusion, but now I'm not seeing it. Nope. There's nothing here to write home about. Yeah, nothing really that great. Necromancy usually doesn't... Oh, of course, Magic Jar. How could I forget that that's a 5th level spell? So, Magic Jar. Magic Jar is potentially broken. It is potentially game breaking if used pretty much as written. The reason for that is it allows you to sort of inhabit an enemy's body, and if they die while you inhabit while you inhabit them, it doesn't do anything to you. You just go back to your body. So you leave your body, enter an enemy's body, and control them. Um, you place your you place your soul in a gem or something in a magic jar, and then your body leaves. Then you can attempt to take by part of take control of a nearby body. Okay, so that's all fine. That's all fine. Yeah, so you stand outside the room where all the bad guys are and magic jar into the room and have them all kill each other. So magic jar can be very, very powerful. It is the one necromancy spell. It is pretty much the one spell that makes necromancy okay. I feel like most other necromancy spells, some of them are alright, but magic jar is just, it can be very, very powerful. So magic jar, watch out for that one. There's nothing really else that great here. Um, and I mean, if you followed my advice and made necromancy your opposition school, then you're not going to be probably. I mean, you can take magic jar. It's totally worth 2 spell slots, but ask your DM first. That's what I'm going to say for magic jar. Ask your DM first. Because either the DM might be really clever and just say like, well, I'm not going to really give you a chance to ever use magic jar. But I feel like if you're a clever enough player, you're going to find a situation where you're going to be able to magic jar and cause a lot of damage. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Magic jar is one worth it. Anything in transmutation that's really any good? Oh, polymorph. Oh, it gives one willing subject a new form. So polymorph allows you to just, it's like everything I've said about beast shape and elemental shape and all those other shape spells, polymorph is the ultimate one. It allows you to just turn into pretty much anything as far as I remember. At least that's how it was in 3.5. I remember choosing, yeah. So it causes you to take on, so it's like beast shape 2, elemental body 1. It's like you can take on a whole slew of forms. So polymorph is a really good utility spell because it gives you access to all these other spells. And the reason why all those other spells tend to be good is for their utility. So it is polymorph ultimate utility kind of thing. Telekinesis can be kind of a fun spell. It's just one of those spells that could be good, is kind of fun, but maybe not the most helpful. You can basically just throw creatures around. You can do sustained force. You can do combat maneuvers and thrust them around. You can throw them around like a poltergeist, which is interesting, but actually not as useful as it might sound. If you're fighting on top of a tower, or near a cliff or something and just toss them off the cliff, that's pretty funny and that's definitely worthwhile. Other than that, it's pretty situational. And then there's permanency. So permanency, the thing to note about permanency is it's a very expensive spell to cast. Whenever you see this M here, that means material component, which means that it's going to cost you something. And you can basically make a spell permanent on somebody, which can be very useful. Stuff like comprehend languages, you can make permanent on yourself for as little as 2,500 gold. So that's pretty cool. Some other more useful spells, like, I guess you could do reduce person on yourself as well. That could be actually pretty useful. But there's some other very useful spells that you could do, but it's a very expensive spell to make permanent. And let's see, was like mage armor an option? I'm not even sure. I'm not sure. I don't think it is. But yeah, so there's a whole slew of spells here. This is definitely one worth looking into. If you've got lots of money and you want to just be able to detect magic all the time, actually that's not, you can cast detect magic as often as you want. It wouldn't bother. Dark vision could be useful. Tongues could be useful. You can talk any language, all languages ever. Though considering how high your intelligence is, that's probably not going to be that great. You can make enlarge person permanent on the fighter. Oh wait, is this only yourself? In addition, person use permanency can be used to. Yeah. So this is self only. This is self, others, and objects. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Enlarge person, cast that on the fighter and make it permanent. The fighter is going to love you. So that's actually a really good one. And reduced person can be very useful for yourself, because as a smaller person, you're a smaller target, which gives you a bonus to hit, and it's going to make you harder to hit yourself. And of course, it's not going to impact the veracity of your spells. So some of these are actually pretty good. You cast Magic Fang on like the Druid's Wolf Companion or what have you. So there's a couple of really good options here. So I highly recommend permanency. If you hit if you get 5th level spells, permanency is a good spell worth checking out, and you definitely want it in your spell book, because even if you don't necessarily want to cast it right now, at some point you probably will. And see, that's about wraps it up for 5th level spells. Notice that even though there's still a decent number of spells, it's starting to get harder and harder to find the gems in the rough. I feel like, again, 1st level spells have the most variety out of any spells. 2nd level spells get a little bit better, and then 3rd level spells are the peak. That's where you're going to find some of your best spells. That said, that doesn't mean that spells don't get better. There are some really good ones. I mean, there is Wish, which I believe that's a 9th level spell. Once you get to 9th level, I mean, if you're playing a wizard that can cast 9th level spells, you are almost like your little god, your own little god in the D&D universe. You can do almost anything you want, because there are spells like Wish. Where's Wish? There's Wish. So Wish basically allows you to have like anything happen. Like, it costs 25,000 gold, so it's expensive. But I mean, you can duplicate any spell. It's a wish. Imagine asking for a genie and saying, like, you have 3 wishes. Well, I'm going to wish for blank. There are some limits to it, but not enough limits to make the spell suck. So wish is incredibly powerful. And of course, there are things like time stop, which broken, which just give you additional rounds to act freely. And so once you get to like the higher level spells, there is more good stuff to look forward to. It's just that by the time you get there, you're kind of broken. A wizard that can cast 9th level spells is just put them up against a fighter, and the wizard is going to blow the fighter out of the water within a round. But in any case, so spells. I feel like I've covered spells relatively well. I know I haven't gone over a lot of them. I just sort of picked out ones that you may want to consider. And like I said, there's still plenty of other decent spells that you may want to get, just to round out your spell book and have them in there for utility, or just have them for fun. There's no one way to play a wizard, but you know, a lot of these spells are going to make you more powerful, are going to make your wizard pretty strong. So that's why I recommend them. The spells I recommended, if you pick all those spells, you're going to be a pretty strong wizard, and you're going to have a good time doing it. But I feel like if you pick just a couple of them, you're still going to be just fine. So, yeah. That's spells, and that's the biggest part of the sorcerer, any kind of wizard build or sorcerer build. So, yeah, whew, that was a big thing. So let's talk about races real fast. Races is actually, that shouldn't take me very long to talk about, because there's basically only one thing you care about, which is that you need an ability score +2 intelligence. That's what you want. So elf is pretty decent. The penalty to Constitution kind of sucks, but the bonus to Dex is great, and the bonus to Int is also good. So, elves make good wizards, unsurprisingly. Humans are good at everything. Playing a human wizard is no exception. Very strong. Other things that are good choices, like I said, if you see the plus to Int, they're a good choice. Rat folk, I know I played a rat folk wizard, and it was actually pretty fun. They're small, which is a benefit. They get a bonus to Int and Dexterity, which is a benefit. They have Dark Vision, which is a benefit. There's just so many things that are good about a Ratfolk Wizard. So I really liked playing a Ratfolk Wizard. It's pretty good. Sylphs make good wizards too, but they're basically just elves with couple of extras. They have that energy resistance to electricity. And One thing I haven't talked a whole lot about, but that is available, is there are these things called alternate racial traits. Make sure that that's okay with your DM to use them. And one thing that sylphs have is, which one is it? They can make themselves faster. Is it Breeze Kissed? No, not that one. Oh yeah, here we go. Like the wind. They get rid of their electric energy resistance, which, electric energy resistance doesn't really come up. Electric damage doesn't really come up very often at all, unless you're facing lightning wizards. But this one gives you a +5 bonus to speed. So that's something worth checking out for. Being faster as a wizard is kind of good. So, so sometimes you want to look into those alternate racial traits. Tieflings, just right out of the gate, you don't have to use that alternate tiefling thing I think I talked about earlier. You don't need to use that to get a dex int. Fantastic. They're outsiders, which is also good, just like sylphs. Outsiders meaning that spells that say person in them don't work on them. So like hold person or charm person aren't going to work, or dominate person aren't going to work on a tiefling. So, haha. And fiendish resistance, you get a bunch of resistances. So tieflings are very strong, very strong. And aside from that, like I said, anything with a plus to int is really going to... Samsarin, yeah, that's fine. Like anything with a plus to int. Anything with a plus to int is good. So yeah, race options for wizards, focus on the intelligence, because you want your intelligence to be as high as can. If you can make your intelligence 20 at level 1, great. Do it. Highly recommend. And beyond that, being small is a benefit. Bonus to dexterity is a benefit. Bonus to constitution, if you can somehow manage it, is a benefit. Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a bonus to constitution. But a penalty to constitution kind of sucks, because fewer hit points suck. And yeah, so that's basically race. So yeah, not terribly complicated there. Let's talk about feats. So feats are something that even I struggle with for a wizard. And the reason for that is, where's the feat tree? Feat tree. Enjoy me a feat tree. The reason for that is that there aren't actually that many good feats for wizards. There are Metamagic feats, which you'll want to use. You also get Scribe Scroll right off the bat. You occasionally get a bonus feat as a wizard. Yeah, a couple of times you get a bonus feat. You're not going to get it very often. And those bonus feats have to be picked from, I think, Metamagic, Item Creation, or Spell Mastery. Okay, yeah, you have to pick one of those. And, yeah, they're alright. But, yeah, so some spells that you're going to probably encounter are stuff like, oh god, Spell Focus is what I'm looking for. Apologize for the little clicking noise there, for the little ding. Alright, Spell Focus. So, Spell Focus, it's going to increase the DC of one school of spells, which is okay. It's increasing the DC of a spell by 1 is not very much, and the fact that it's only one school is kind of painful, actually. If it did it to all your DCs, I'd say it's worth it, but one DC, it's like, eh. A good thing about being a wizard is that you have access to a huge library of spells. Why would you're not only going to be casting one school of spells. As awesome as Conjuration is, you're just not going to need it as much. And the funny thing is that Conjuration, being my favorite school of spells, doesn't actually benefit very much from this at all, because a lot of them are sort of utility spells. Yeah, sure, Stinking Cloud will benefit from it, but, like, Dimension Door won't. So, yeah. Spell Focus by itself is okay, but it opens up a couple of other good ones, like Augment Summoning. Summons in general are pretty good, and giving them a +4 strength and con is pretty fantastic. It does require you to do Spell Focus Conjuration. That's sort of why I was saying it wasn't that great by itself, because I see it right underneath there. But it's still worth getting Spell Focus Conjuration just to get Augment Summoning. Augment Summonings can be very good. If you like summoning creatures, then, hey, that's Augment Summoning, you kind of need it. There's also Spell Specialization. And you get to pick a spell and just make it more awesome. Most spells, it's not that great on. Especially if you're going to hit higher levels anyway. Most spells cap out at a certain level. And Spell Specialization forces you to pick a spell. And I'm pretty sure that you can't, like, reassign it. So, given enough levels, it'll actually become obsolete for the vast majority of spells. For level variables. Every time you gain a level in the spell casting, you choose your spell from. You can choose. Oh, okay, so you can replace it. Okay, spell focus is pretty good then. Excuse me, spell specialization is actually pretty good then. So you can make a fireball sting by 2d6 more. So if you've got a spell that is pretty level dependent, spell specialization is pretty decent. Greater spell specialization. Sacrifice a spell to cast your specialized spell. Yes, greater spell specialization, again, it just allows you to cast that spell more often. It's not bad. So there's a couple of decent spells. Spell penetration is something that is going to depend on the campaign you're in. It can be a lifesaver sometimes. So there's this thing called spell resistance, which is the bane of every caster. Most of your damaging and offensive spells don't bypass spell resistance. There's a couple that do, and you'll want to watch out for those, but most of them don't. And getting past spell resistance can be difficult. So getting a +2 bonus to overcome spell resistance is very, very useful. And spell resistance is had by a lot of like demons and devils, but also other kind of creatures that you're likely to encounter. If you think that you're likely to encounter creatures with spell resistance, this can be a lifesaver. But if it never comes up, then it's kind of a wasted spell. Greater spell penetration, of course, does the exact same thing. It just stacks with spell penetration. There we go. Spell perfection is another decent one that you can get if you're high enough level and you have all the metamagic feats. This is, I mean, it's a really, really high level spell. You can only get it, see, at level 15. Yeah, 15. So yeah, you don't really bother looking at it until you're that level, and then maybe get it at level 15. I mean, you get a bonus feat. Might as well be at level 15, being a level 15 wizard. Might as well be spell perfection, I suppose. But yeah, I'm not going to really talk too much about that because it just comes up so incredibly late. And I feel like, actually, since this requires metamagic feats, let's talk about metamagic feats right now, just to understand what everybody. You probably heard them now a couple of times, and if you don't know what they are, it can be kind of confusing. Metamagic feats. Metamagic feats, the way they work for a wizard is that when you're memorizing a spell, you can apply a metamagic feat to it. You can be like, well, I'm going to make my fireball an aquatic spell. What that does is that there's going to be a level increase, so fireball is normally a 3rd level spell. If you're applying aquatic spell to it, it increases the spell level by 1, so it becomes, you have to memorize it as a 4th level spell. And it does additional things. And that's metamagic feat. If you have the aquatic spell feat, then you can apply aquatic spell to any of your spells, increasing their casting by 1. That's how metamagic feats work. That said, though, there aren't actually that many feats that are that great. There aren't that many great metamagic feats. It kind of sucks, actually. So one that you're going to be likely tempted to take is Empower. And what's the other one? Intensify. Intensify. Where are you? I've gone too far. I know Intensify spell is somewhere around here. You're probably pointing on it on the page going like, Vince, it's right there. Oh, Intensified spell. Here it is. Intensified spell. Those are ones that you're going to be... Oh, wait. Intensified, increase maximum damage dice. Yeah, and maximize. Excuse me. Maximize spell and Empower are ones that you're going to be really tempted to use. Because they're going to... if you're a blaster caster, it's going to increase your spell damage. Problem is that they're very expensive for what they do. So an empowered fireball is a 5th level spell and increases spell variables only by 50%, which means that you're casting a 5th level spell. So if you are a 10th level wizard, that would be 15d6 as opposed to 10d6, but you're expending a 5th level slot instead of a 3rd level slot. Could be a trade-off you'd want to make. There are some times when, empowering a spell, will really do a lot of stuff for you. But yeah, it only works on the variables of the spell. So if you do like a static +5 or something like that, it does not increase that. So yeah, that's how empowered spell works. Maximize spell also, it just maximizes the spell variable. So I think it's as if you'd rolled maximum on the dice. These feats are maximized, yeah. So essentially that means if you're casting a 10th level fireball, it's just going to straight up do 60 damage. You don't have to roll for it, just straight up 60 damage. Yeah, so and it also tells you how to use them with Empowered. So those are two that you're going to be likely to want if you're a blaster caster, but do be aware that there are actually better ways to get extra damage. A 3rd level, a fireball spell that's maximized is a 6th level spell. So you might want to think about what else could you be casting as a 6th level spell. You're going to have fewer 6th level spells than 3rd level spells. So yeah. Now what Metamagic feats do you actually want? A good one is Extend. Extend spell. Here it is. Extend spell doubles the duration of a spell. So Mage Armor, for instance, which lasts maybe like, at 3rd or 4th level, it's going to last 3 or 4 hours. You double the duration, it's going to last you most of the day, and you're just going to set it and forget it. So doubling the duration, especially spells that last hours, is fantastic. But even those spells that last minutes and can be incredibly useful. So Extend spell is usually one that quite a few people go for. And the other reason why is because it only raises the spell level by 1. So extending Mage Armor being a 1st level spell, you cast as a 2nd level spell. There aren't that many great 2nd level spells anyway, so yeah, I think that's pretty good. So Extend spell is not a bad one. Aside from that, you can... Oh, Quicken, of course. I have to take a second to talk about Quicken. So Quicken is, I think, the most expensive one you're going to find here at +4. Yeah, so Quicken increases the spell slot by 4. It is the most expensive thing on here, spell slot wise. But the reason for that is it is the most broken, and it allows you to do the most. It allows you to cast a spell as a swift action. It's a spell, so you can cast, if you're doing the math here, you can essentially cast 2 spells in a round. One of the favorite things to quicken is something like True Strike. If you have trouble hitting something with, say, a Scorching Ray or something like that, you can quicken a True Strike as a 5th level spell, and it's going to give you +20 to the next attack that you're going to have, right afterwards. It's not going to take you a whole round. But you can quicken all kinds of spells. Yes, a +4 is very, very expensive, but you're breaking the action economy. And those people, and what guides will usually tell you, if you can break the action economy, you can win the game. So that's what it's... Quicken is a very, 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 very good one, but don't get it until later when you can actually cast, 5th level, 6th level spells, because it's just not going to be useful until then. So that's not bad. Other Metamagic feats that you're likely to maybe want? Not a whole lot. Elemental spell might be one that is worth getting. Oh, and where is it? I know it's around here somewhere. Crud, what's it called? There's a spell, there's a Metamagic feat that allows you to ignore targets in your areas of effect. Start with it. Selective spell. Yes, that's the one. It excludes targets from an area of effect spell. It is very useful. Of course, you can't get until level 10, but that's fine. So elemental spell allows you to change. You choose an energy type: acid, cold, electricity, or fire, and you can replace your spell's normal damage with whatever you chose. Pick out of there. It kind of depends on what you're likely to encounter. Cold is not a bad one to pick because fire and cold usually oppose each other. There aren't a whole lot of things that you could make a cold fireball. Electricity and acid aren't bad either. Just don't pick fire. Don't pick fire. Being able to switch to fire is not nearly as useful as being able to switch from fire. So because you have a lot of good fire spells, just get acid, cold, or electricity. You're probably fine doing any of those. So elemental, this can really help you out when you're struggling with fire resistance. Get elemental spell then. Selective spell, like I said, is a really good one, and yeah, it basically means that if you're putting stinking cloud, you pick. What's really good about that is you pick targets that aren't affected by it, and it's going to be equal to your ability score modifier, so your intelligence modifier, which should be at this level probably enough to cover all of your party. So you basically say like, hey, this stinking cloud right here that I just cast, all my pals are immune to it, and we're going to go fight in the stinking cloud. Horribly devastating. I've done that before. Horribly devastating. So, selective spell, an incredibly good spell. I really, a Metamagic feat. I really enjoy it. Of course, it takes 10 ranks of spellcraft. But I think there's a way to get around that. So, that's Metamagic feats. So let's quickly talk about the rest, some other feats you could take. Like I said, there was like spell penetration and spell focus feats. Aside from that, there's not going to be a whole lot of other stuff that you are necessarily going to want. Other things that you could potentially do is anything like take Iron Will or Greater Fortitude or Lightning Reflexes. Take those to buff your defenses. Toughness is not a bad one in Pathfinder. It sucks in 3.5, but in Pathfinder it's not bad as an extra hit point per level, which you're not going to have a whole lot of hit points. Skill Focus is one that you might actually consider to do for like spellcraft. Other ones that are actually definitely worth taking is Combat Casting. Yeah, Combat Casting gives you +4 concentration check. Concentration check sucks when you fail them because you lose the spell. So Combat Casting, while it lets you cast defensively much more easily. Uncanny Concentration, don't make concentration check for violent movement. That kind of, I've never had to do a concentration check for violent movement. My DMs don't normally bring that up. If your DM does, well, that's a way to get around it. And then, of course, there's the just a +2 bonus to concentration check, which is pretty decent. It's not as good as the +4 you're getting here, but it might be worth considering if you're struggling with it. And that's really about it. There's a lot of these other things that might seem like you'd want them, like armor proficiency. Don't get it, it's a trap. Arcane spell failure chance for... it can't be... it takes too many feats to reduce it. So if you wanted to get like... so reduce your arcane spell failure chance by 10%. That's not enough for some light armors, for like the best light armors. 20% is. But at this point, you're what, in 4 feats deep? You need arcane armor training. Armor proficiency medium, which requires armor proficiency light. So that's... and this one. So God, I would not go for it. Do not go for this route. There are better ways. Mage armor is a better investment than this. Mage armor and a decent dex. So don't go with that. So there's a couple of traps around, but yeah, there's just not really a whole lot for casters. Fighters is more the province of martial fighters, of martial classes like fighters and barbarians. So yeah. All right, last thing I want to talk about is items. And the reason why I want to talk about items is that being a wizard, one of the feats you can take is item creation feats. Essentially what you're doing is you're trading in a feat for money, which if it's difficult in your campaign setting to get money and to get items, like if magic items just aren't available to you, then item creation feats suddenly become really good. As far as item creation feats go, I wonder, they have their own heading, right? Yeah, item creation feats. As far as item creation feats go, Metamagic rods are awesome, but in order to craft a Metamagic rod, you need to know the Metamagic feat to put in the rod, and if you have the feat, you don't need the rod. So craft rod is useless. Don't bother getting it, because it's only going to give you Metamagic rods of Metamagic feats you already have. Useless. Craft staff is very good. Of course, it requires caster level 11, so of course it's good. Craft wand wands are pretty cheap, so I wouldn't bother with it, but if you can't get wands any other way, it's actually pretty good. Craft wondrous item is actually pretty good. Wondrous items just are... there's a huge variety of them. They're useful for the entire party, and you could actually save the entire party money. Well, I feel like Craft Wand, you're just not going to get that much usage out of it if you can get wands in another way. Craft Staff is pretty much just for you. Scribe Scroll you already have. Don't be tricked into getting this. You already have it. Craft Wondrous Item is the one that's going to be useful for the entire party and would be the only one that I'm necessarily tempted to get here. One, because you can get it at a low level, so it can be useful relatively early on when you might be running low on gold. And there's a lot of good wondrous items. Just make sure you have the right spells for it, like Bull's Strength. And you can get the spells and put them in your spell book, so that's not a problem. You can buy the spell. Alright, so items. Metamagic feats. Yeah, Craft Wondrous items might be worth getting. Craft Wand only if the wands aren't available. Craft Staff is a good one. But again, my feeling about these are pretty ambivalent because on one hand, yeah, money is nice, but on the other hand, feats I think are a little bit more important. And you're going to get better mileage out of some of the other feats. So, take them as you will. Don't take Craft Magic Arms and Armor. Can be alright. I wouldn't bother with Brew Potions. I wouldn't really bother with Craft Magic Arms and Armor, again, unless your DM doesn't give you magic items and you have to make them yourself. Then get them. Otherwise, don't bother with those. Okay. Now, let's talk items, which is... I know I didn't go over items extensively when in my fighter guide, but here for a wizard, it's a little bit more difficult. Fighters are going to get a +1 weapon and a +1 armor. That's pretty straightforward. What's a wizard going to get? You're not going to get a +1 weapon. You're not going to get a +1 armor. You're going to get other things. The first thing you're probably going to want to get is a wand of some kind. A wand has a certain number of charges, 50 usually when you buy them, and for a level 1 spell it costs 750 gold, which is a decent amount, but actually relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things, and it's going to give you 50 charges of a spell. And at the beginning, you're going to be hurting for spells. So all you have to decide is what to put in the wand. Wands cast spells at... You can pay more to get higher caster levels on the wand, but essentially what you want to put in the wand is stuff that is relatively independent of caster level. Good spells are stuff like a Wand of Infernal Healing. It's going to allow you to just heal the party. That's 500 hit points worth of healing in that wand. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. For out-of-combat healing, it's tough to beat a Wand of Infernal Healing. I highly recommend getting one of them if your level's like 1, 1, 2, or 3. Even if you have a Cleric, just get one. It'll save you spells, it'll save the Cleric spells. It's just good overall. There's a couple of other spells. Couple of things that are a trap. Don't get a Wand of like Magic Missile or Burning Hands or something like that, because at level 1 they're kind of bad. You're just not going to get that much usage out of them, and they're not going to be that good. If you're essentially intending to cast Magic Missile at absolutely everything, okay, maybe. But other wands that are useful is stuff like, I don't know. You'll just have to see what you think you're likely to cast relatively often, but don't really want to dedicate slots to. That is more of a personal preference, but wands are not bad to get. But let's quickly talk Metamagic Rods, and I'm already sort of on the same page, on the right page for this. So Metamagic Rods, the way that Metamagic Rods work is that, first of all, they're very expensive. I think they cost, a minimum of 3,000 gold. I'm not sure about that. And they get more expensive the higher the, what you call it. Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention Heightened Spell. Talk about that in a moment. But Metamagic Rods are going to, they basically allow you to put a metamagic spell on a metamagic feat onto one of your spells spontaneously, and what that's going to and it's not going to increase the spell level. Okay, that's the crucial bit. It's not going to increase the spell level, which is really good. That is what makes, if you can get a Metamagic Rod of Quicken, oh, you're good. That would be the best thing, but it is super, super, super expensive. You're not going to be able to afford that very early on. But Metamagic Rods, like a Metamagic Rod of Selective Spell, fantastic. Metamagic Rod of Enlarge spell, or excuse me, extend spell, also really, really good. Highly recommend getting a Metamagic Rod if you can afford it. Of Metamagic spells that you're likely to use, like extend, but even one of like empower or maximize can be useful, just to give your spell that little bit of extra oomph. Because it doesn't raise spell level and it's applied spontaneously, it can be, you use it when you need it. And that is fantastic. And it gives the wizard a huge amount of versatility. So Metamagic Rods, really very useful. And so just to keep in mind what I said about Metamagic feats. Another Metamagic feat that I should have mentioned is Heightened Spell. Basically, you cast it at a higher, you basically treat a spell at a higher level by casting it at a higher level. Yeah, it increases the effective level of the spell. So basically, you can heighten a. So a fireball is a third level spell, meaning that a creature has to save against a third level spell. With heightened spell, you can make the save DCs higher. So that's basically what it's used for, which can be very useful. What's nice about it is that it's pretty versatile. You increase the spell level of spells to make them harder to save against as you need them. So Heightened Spell is versatile enough that I think I'll recommend getting it. And having a Metamagic Rod of that can also be useful. Actually, I'm not sure if you can get a Metamagic Rod of Heightened Spell now that I think about it, because it is variable. So I may be wrong about that. Alright, that's Metamagic Rods. Highly recommend getting them. And beyond that, if you have a Metamagic rod, you have a couple of wands. One thing that I just super recommend is getting a bunch of scrolls. So let me just go to the scroll page here. So you're a wizard. If you have a scroll, you can copy the scroll. You can copy the spell on the scroll down into your spell book, given enough time. And level 1 scrolls are dirt cheap. At 25 gold, I've literally played a wizard where I think I spent about 2,500 gold. So I bought 100 first level spells and just copied them all down into my spell book, and had 100 scrolls to boot. And if you're ever gaining a level and you're like, wow, I only get, when you first become get access to second level spells, you're only going to get 2 of them. And if you're like, man, I really wish I had more of them, buy some scrolls. It's fantastic. You just, it's actually relatively cheap. It starts getting more expensive as you go along. Once it starts costing like 1,000 gold, you're going to have to seriously think about whether it's worth it doing or not. But first level, second level, and even third level spells, I think it's very, very worth it. Highly recommend buying scrolls just to scribe them into your spell book. And a couple of scrolls are also good to have for utility spells that you're unlikely to use very often, but are glad to have when you do need them. Stuff like Rope Trick. If you're not intending to use it very often, just get a scroll of it. And other things like that. Also, it's important that it's independent of caster level. Actually, I think when you cast a scroll, it takes your caster level? Ooh. I'm not sure about that. But the main reason why I buy scrolls is to just add them to my spell book. It's a really cheap good way to give a lot of utility to your character. So, scrolls. Pretty good. And of course, you have Scribe Scroll the feat, which means that if you know a spell, then you can make a scroll of it for half the cost. So, I also recommend doing that for a couple of utility things. And beyond that, you might want to look into a couple of wondrous items. The wondrous item section is humongous. It's part of the reason why I recommend getting wondrous items. A couple of things that you may consider getting is under next slot, get a... don't get Bracers of Armor later on. I wouldn't bother with them. But Amulet of Natural Armor, that's a good one. That's something you should seriously consider getting. Back to top. Back slot. Where's the back slot? Belt slot, body slot. Wait, is it body slot? Did they change it? Oh, they're changing things on me. But I think it's body slot? I thought there was a back slot. But head slot wise, there's another really good one, which is the wait, not head slot, headband slot. I stand corrected. Headband slot is separate from head slot, which is headband of vast intelligence. +2 gives you +2 intelligence. How good is that? You don't really care about charisma or wisdom, so don't go for the headband of mental perfection. Is that what's called? Or mental prowess. It's going to give you +2 to all of your mental stats. I wouldn't bother with that because you don't need charisma or wisdom. Just go with the headband of vast intelligence if you can. If you can afford a +4 one, that's pretty dang good. Your intelligence is your bread and butter. Going to increase your deceives. It's going to make your concentration check easier. It's just so good in so many ways. Highly recommend a headband of vast intelligence if you can afford it. Aside from that, shoulder item. It's not back slot. Shoulder item, of course. Cloak resistance, always a good one. Amulet of natural armor. Cloak resistance. Ring of protection is the other one. Where are you, ring? Wrist slot, hand slot. Is there a ring slot? I don't even know. They've changed things on me a little bit since 3.5, especially in the slots. But there's the Ring of Protection, also a good one. And beyond that, there's not really a whole lot of other good stuff. There's a whole lot of utility stuff here, like a Belt of Dexterity. Belt of Incredible Dexterity does the same thing as Headband of Intellect. Belt of Mighty Constitution as well. You can only have one belt, of course. A Belt of Physical Might might actually be worth it. If just to boost your constitution and dexterity. You don't really care about the strength. Don't bother with the strength. But yeah, so that is something else you can get. And beyond that, there's a couple of other things that this list is just worth browsing through because you might find a couple of things that are just useful for you. But the ones that I just mentioned are things worth getting. And beyond that, that's pretty much it. I think I've given you enough to build an awesome wizard. I've kind of gone over everything at this point, from spells to specializations to races and feats and, all that stuff, and items as well, just to round it out. And I think if you're playing a first-time wizard and you just follow this guide, I think you'll do just fine. In fact, you should do pretty dang well. One other thing that I'm going to mention, and I also didn't mention this in my fighter guide, is that there are these things called archetypes. And archetypes basically change fundamental things about the class. Like, an arcane bomber is no longer going to have cantrips, it's no longer have an arcane bond, it's no longer going to have an arcane school, and they're going to get some other things to make up for that. Most of the time, I don't think archetypes are that great. There's a couple of good ones. I know I played a Shadowcaster, and that one might be worth checking out, but most of the time they're not really worth it. I don't recommend playing an archetype until you've played the base class and you kind of see how they go. Maybe one of these days I'll do one more in-depth on guide on archetypes. But I think this time around, I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I know these videos have been long enough as is. But I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I hope that you watched this video and went like, yes, that's very interesting. And even people who know D&D and know Pathfinder pretty well, I hope that you guys learned something too, because I know I like just learning more about classes and what other people think, and especially when it comes to like spell selection, everybody's got their favorite. So I hope this has been helpful. And I hope you guys stick around for some of my other guides as well. So I will see you guys next time.